Welcome to the Voice of Business. I'm Nicholas Jones, and I'm here with Arnie Gumm, a longtime friend of mine that I actually met around 2013.
That
at
sounds
the
about right.
West
Yeah,
Idaho Fair.
Yeah.
So Arnie is my mentor for food trucking, and he's kind of the biggest food truck empire person that I know. And he's got it down. He understands everything relating to food trucks, back and in and out. So this episode, if you are interested in food trucking, we're going to tell you all the reasons why it's hard, difficult, and maybe there could be a different potential career for you. But if you're interested in it and you're willing to go for it, let's go at it. I actually was in food trucks for about 6 years, and in a short little summary of my food trucking career, when I got into it in 2013, I wanted to come to Boise, Idaho, and I had to figure out a way to get here because I had just graduated from Notre Dame, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just sell bacon, put it on a stick, and that's a good way for me to be able to come and live in Boise and actually have a job here. And as I started doing it within the first year or so, I thought to myself, why would anybody ever leave this? Because people were leaving food trucking. This is great. You work in the summer. It's great. What's going on? And about year 4, starting the beginning of the season, I went, oh, yeah. This is why people don't do it for very long. Because it seems like the average lifestyle is like 3-5 years and then people are out. Right. That's what I was always wondering. It's like, what is with these people? But that was the first 2 years. 3rd, 4th year, I was like, exactly. And then, what do you know? I'm just average. I left after 6 years. But Arnie, you've been in it since '98.
Correct.
That is a long time. And you have 7 different...
Seven right now.
7 right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to dig into that. But before we really get into that, like we do with every show, it's really important for us to understand who Arnie is. So Arnie Gumm, you've got a food truck empire. Do you have a name for this food truck empire?
It goes under the major name is Paradise Ice.
Paradise Ice. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you've got that one major food truck, Paradise Ice.
And then I have a truck that's also named after Paradise Ice. Well, obviously one with an S, one with a C as far as spelling goes. But and that was the one we started with. And then we just accumulated more trailers as we went. And just kept them under the major name. Obviously, each trailer has its own name that goes along, so that it differentiates it from the rest of the pack. But outside of that, it's all the same company name.
Well, good. And you recently retired from the Air Force, is that right?
I did 2 years ago. Yes.
2 years ago. So let's talk about kind of your past, who you are, and really kind of what brought you today into the food trucking world. So when did you, what was so you graduated from high school and then what do you do?
Yeah, so I graduated from high school. I spent a couple years here in Boise. I'm from here. And the economy in the early 80s, latter 70s wasn't very good around here, about kind of like where we're headed right now.
Good job.
But so I decided, I'll go into the Air Force. I'll get a knowledge and have them train me in electronics and electrician and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd come back and continue doing what I was doing. Well, that didn't pan out. But in the meantime, so I went active duty for 4 years, got out of active duty, came here, went into the Guard, spent the rest of my time, the last, about 30 years out here at the Guard, doing F4s, A10s, 130s, that kind of stuff. And while there, a couple of guys that I worked with were doing concession trailers, food trucks, and as a part-time gig. And I knew that I needed to get into something because an 8-to-5 job just isn't going to make things happen for you. You just can't get ahead that way. It's just not going to work.
You can't escape the rat race.
No, it just doesn't work. So I knew I wanted to get into something, but I wanted to get into something that was part-time and that I could actually possibly make some money at. And so after, a few years talking with these guys, went and spent some time with them in their vehicles, and actually 2 years working for them, learning the ins and outs and ups and downs and, all that kind of stuff. Then one of them decided, well, it's time for me, like you did. Well, it's time for me to get out. And he was only doing it to create and make money so that he could send his kids to college. His kids went to college.
It's a good, easy way to do it.
Exactly. His kids went to college, and they'd moved out and moved on, and so he's like, yeah, I'm done. I don't need to do this anymore. And so he was wanting to sell. So I thought, well, what the heck? I'll give it a shot. So we did. We started, and for, I don't know, about 2 years, 3 years, we had just the one.
And was this the Paradise Ice?
Just Paradise
so
Ice.
So it started with Paradise Ice, which everything kind of is underneath.
Yep. And we had, to start with, I think we had 3, maybe 4 shows. And over time, since that period of time, we've added more trailers and we've added more shows. We were up to 21, 25, something like that there for a while. And then we decided that, you start looking at time versus output, and you realize that some of these shows, although they're helpful to get your name recognized and get out into the public and all that kind of stuff, you weren't making a whole lot of money out of it.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed is that there'd be people who would come in, they'd be there for a year, and they had their normal 9-to-5 jobs, they throw money away, and they walk away from the show thinking, hey, look, I just made $9,000. And it's like, yeah, but you paid $8,000 for food.
Exactly.
So like, I mean, there was no break even here, but they aren't even looking at that. And so
no, and that's the biggest problem. The people that have come and gone, and there's been a ton over my period of time that have come and gone. And the biggest thing is because everybody, they'll stand in a line and they'll go, oh my gosh, and they'll look at your menu and they go, wow, at the price you're charging, and you got this many people, wow, you're just making a killing. But what they don't see is the taxes that go along with it, the employees pay and all the stuff that goes with employees, and the event takes a big chunk.
Like 10, 20%.
Yeah, I wish you'd only 10 or 20%. I mean, right now it's almost everybody. Every event's taking at least 20%.
Yep.
Some take even more than that, plus entrance fees, plus water and sewer and trash. And I mean, they add it all up. And I mean, you really got to look for your break over points. And then because you're a small business, you're trying to get pricing that's worth a darn.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard because
it's very hard.
You're a small business. You're not the big corporate enterprise where you're like, hey, I'm going to buy $1 million of XYZ.
Right. Yeah. And it's very difficult. And so one of my advantages, if there is such a thing, is because I do have a number of trailers, and I try to keep as much as I can within the same, so that I have bigger buying power, so that I can actually get better pricing at some of these places. Some do and some don't. It just depends. But it's not the great, I'm going to make $1 million overnight business that people tend to think that it is. And that's why they don't stay around very long.
Yeah, because they go into it with these huge expectations that, I'm going to make $15,000. Maybe they do make $15,000 and they've got $17,000 of expenses.
That's the biggest thing. And they don't really realize what is all played into that. And I've run across a number of people, especially when things got rough, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take my 401k and I'm gonna go buy a truck and spend $50,000, $70,000, $80,000, and then I'm gonna go do this because, man, I'm just gonna make a killing." It's like, yeah, you're probably not gonna do that, and all that money you've saved up to date for your proposed retirement, now you're just gonna throw it away, and you're gonna be a pauper sitting on the street corner because.
Well, you see, because one of the things that I've noticed as well, too, and Pete Peterson, by the way, fantastic individual,
awesome.
and super helpful. When I first got into it, I thought, well, I'll just do food trucking on the side of the street as well, because there were the events that I was in, but I was like, I'll do it on the side of the street.
Right.
And Pete pulled me off to the side, and he said, don't you dare do that. It's a horrible idea. There's a reason I don't do that.
That's right.
And he actually took time to sit me down in his restaurant, the
Avatola.
Yeah, Avatola.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's Lisa's.
Lisa's, yeah.
But he sat me down in there and he walked through the numbers with me.
Right.
Where he was like, okay, let's look at this. Like, how many people do you think you're going to get? And he's like, go out and sit and watch. Like, oh, I'm going to get 30 people.
Right.
It's like, okay, so 30 times 7 is and here's the expenses. Here's like, it doesn't work.
No,
like
no.
That. You can't make a living on that. And or anything that's worth any time.
Right.
And so I took that to heart and I didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And you probably did. Now, there again, and Pete is correct in 90% of the time. I mean, that it's not going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a specific product, and there again, you have to take into account your employees, wages, if you have any. You got to take into account your food costs, which are enormous in some cases, depending on what you're trying to sell. And a lot of times on the street corner, especially if you're the 100th hot dog guy, what's your chances? I mean,
they're not good.
No.
The ones that I've seen that have been pretty successful and awesome are like the world's greatest corn dog, like it's a Utah place,
right?
And then Waffle Love, like these niche, unique products that somehow take off, but a lot of that's out of your control.
Correct.
Where it's you could have like an amazing product, but if some influencer, some person doesn't pick it up to share, you're just like a boat without an anchor.
You're just kind of like
wherever it goes,
out there,
you're just drifting out there.
Looking. So if there's quite a few of the taco trucks that are doing pretty well. Basilio's does a great job. I think he's up to 3 trailers himself on the streets, as well as the events, because he knows that the streets kind of hold him in there, but the events are really where it's at. But outside of that, it's a tough game. And the biggest thing that people don't realize is the hours that are involved in doing it.
We are going to talk about that one right after this. So we're going to go to a quick little break. You're listening to The Voice of Business with Nicholas Jones. Welcome back to The Voice of Business. I'm Nicholas Jones, and I am interviewing Arnie Gumm, who has a beautiful food truck empire here in Boise, Idaho. The part that we had just mentioned was the hours. And it's awful.
It is. It's extremely terrible.
I had bacon on a stick was mine in 2013. I first did that. And, folding the bacon on the stick, getting that quarter pound of bacon on every stick. And I didn't realize how much time it took because I just graduated and I had to do stuff and had to make some money. So I just was like, whatever, let's go into it. I wasn't really thinking about it. When we came around to the next year, I actually was better prepared, more shows, more equipped. And I started to realize that, wait a minute, I'm spending like 20 hours to do like a 2-day show, just like getting everything ready.
Right.
And I remember, I think it was at Western Idaho Fair. I had one day where like they had a really big show. And I realized that, wait, I make all my money in 2 hours because my fryers went down and I made no money that day. And I realized, wait a minute, there's like a 2-hour window where that's when I'm making the money, and everyone else I just stand around and watch grass grow.
Right.
And so, even with Oriental Express, I had the the same thing. I had another food truck, Oriental Express. I mean, it was like 20, 30 hours of cutting vegetables, cutting chicken, getting everything ready, and doing it. And I had to find at the time I didn't have commercial kitchens, so I had to find a commercial kitchen to do it in so that I wasn't going to kill people with dog hair or cat hair from an animal. And so, that added into it, and that's. But like, I mean, how, like with you too, you have tons of hours that like to go into prep as well as at the show.
Well, and the thing is, most of your shows, most everything we do on a show basis are 12 hours with the windows open to sell to the public. Mm-hmm. So you have to man 12 hours a day, period, just to have the windows open. And that 12 hours, like you just said, could mean that you might get 2 hours of selling out of that 12 hours that actually make any money. The rest of the time, everybody's standing around looking to do something. If it's you got time to lean, you got time to clean type of scenario. Mm-hmm. But at the same point in time, you're really, and when it hits hard. Very hard. And you have to move so fast, and you have to be prepared, because if you got caught flat-footed, you're out. You're done, because you don't have the window to come back to. You're done.
Yeah, it's over for that day.
Yeah, that day's just done. So and to get to that opening time period, it's going to take you a couple hours, depending on what you're doing. Mm-hmm. If you've got a single truck or a single trailer, but like you said, it takes X amount of time to put all your product together just to prep it and get ready to open the windows. And then you have that same type of time period on the back end to close down. Get your receipts, get everything done, clean up everything, do all the washing, get everything ready.
Yeah, and it's so much easier with the trailer than it is with the stick booth.
Oh, by far.
Because when I first got into this, I had the stick booth,
right?
Where I'm post everything up. And
Yep.
it takes like 8 hours. There was one year at the Western Auto Fair where they made me move my stick booth 3 freaking times because I was in the wrong spot at the beginning, and they're like, no, just be better. So then I moved it.
Right.
And then the director comes by like, why the freak are you there? And I was like, I don't know. Like, they told me to move it. And then like they moved me again. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that's a lot of work.
It
If
was-
you're in a stick booth, it's extremely a lot of work just for the booth and all the equipment that you have.
Yeah.
So
Gotta move it all.
it's definitely I determined that way early. Now early, obviously I started with the trailer, but we did a lot of shows early before we got multiple trailers where we did knockdown booths as seconds and as in different shows depending on what the show was. And yeah, boy, it takes time. You got to pull in, unload everything, set everything up, and then you got to take all that stuff, and that's over and above just getting your product and everything ready.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
And I remember the last event that I did was where I was using your dolly to move
Right.
my food truck, and it flipped me and I broke my collarbone. And
Oh, yeah,
I remember
that
walking, and I remember like when I broke my collarbone, I remember getting up and I remember walking, and you were like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about it." And like just walking off, and
Yeah.
it was that. Oh man, that was the last one I did actually, just because it just took me so long to get back, and I broke my collarbone like 2 times after that.
I was going to say you did that when you were skiing and stuff too,
Yeah,
right?
skiing, and I broke it when I was walking up an escalator.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
I just click, snap, and I was like, "Dude, for the love, man."
Well, and that was the thing. So getting that, like you say, that dolly is a great ad.
For those of you who aren't listening, or who, I mean, you are listening because you're listening to my show, but for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there's this. What's it's an electric dolly? Like, what's
It's
it
an
called?
electric moving dolly that you can put under the tongue of your trailer and helps you to tow trailers around on grass and in the parking lots and different stuff like that. So you get closer proximity because sometimes it's so difficult to put a trailer in a spot that they want you in because they don't give you enough
they're like
space for your truck and trailer.
Yeah.
So this dolly is really helpful, but this dolly, as Nick already pointed out, can hurt you if you're not careful. Very careful.
It's very powerful.
Yeah. It'll do its job. It
threw me somewhat of about 10 feet up in an arc.
It's got a lot of torque, to pull the trailers. And if it gets stuck and pulls one direction or the other, which is what happened to you, it just hammers down. And you're, it's not a throttle lever where you can kind of vary it. It's a turn on and off switch, and that kind of defeats the purpose of safety.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll be ready for next time if there ever is a next time, but so let's talk a little bit about like with getting your message out there. So you talked about doing some shows that are meh, and then in order to have people see you, because it's really exposure. The more times they see you, the more familiar they become with it.
Correct.
Pronto Pups, which every single person listening has heard about it,
Right.
because first off, they're amazing, and second off, like their lemonade, like freaking amazing too.
Right.
But they're very efficient, and it's fresh, it's beautiful. Like he's been down on a tank, and like they have like 3 or 4 of them at shows. But you get that exposure, you see it, you become familiar with
Right.
it. So,
and he's very, let's face it, Peter is probably not the norm for
not
starters
at all.
because his family, they've been in it since 1943. And so as a kid, he grew up in it and they got it down literally to a science. And so there's no wasted steps in their operation, and they're very limited. They do corn dogs and they do lemonade, and that's it. And some of the things that were pointed out to me way early was the very same issue. It's like, don't load up your menu, because the more items you have on the menu, the more product you have to buy, the more prep you have to do. It's just crazy. Stay consistent, stay limited on your menu, and just do it very well. And Peter does it very well. And most of the people that you look around and see that have been here, that have been around for a very long time, they do 2 or 3 things, and they do it very well, and they stick to it. And they've got it down to a science, as opposed to there's a lot of guys out there that have been in the business for a while, but their menu is very fluid, and they'll have 10, 20 items, and depending on what they see, which is kind of unfortunate in some of these shows these days, but depending on what they see that they think is selling, they'll start to add that to their menu for that same show to try to get some more money. It's like, wow, that's just crazy. And they're running rampant, trying to keep
all
up
over,
with all
and
that.
they create a lot of issues because they're never profitable because they're just like a little ship. They're like, oh, I'm going to change this way, like little squirrel rabbit.
Yeah.
They're just like
Yeah.
just going all over the place.
I was in the Fiddler's Contest over in Weiser. And we were, at that time, I had a hamburger joint, and we were doing hamburgers and hot dogs and corn dogs, and there was another vendor that came in. I think he had 3 items on his menu to start with, which wasn't anything to match ours. And he put one of those little A-frame menu boards, dry erase menu boards, double-sided, out in front of his little booth, which in most cases is not
questionable.
legal. Yeah, it's not really legal either because you're supposed to stay within your booth space. But nobody said anything, so he went with it. And like I said, I think he had 3 or 4 items on there plus a couple drinks that he was selling to start with. Well, then he noticed that we were selling hamburgers, and then he noticed that the other booth across from us down the trail just a little ways was selling cotton candy. And he's like, man, they're selling it, and they're making tons. By the end of that show, which was only, 6 days, by the end of that show, he had 2 of those A-frames out there, both sides filled up with multiple products, and he was just trying to sell everything under the sun. Mm-hmm. I doubt very seriously he made any money, but he thought he was because he was trying to get into everybody else's business, which then just upsets everybody.
No, it upsets everybody, and the key thing, too, within a food truck environment is the same thing that I've always touted within a brick and mortar,
right?
Where it's variety, where variety wins the day because it doesn't work to say, you can do a cost of goods analysis, right? We were like,
Correct.
Hey, I'm going to buy cotton candy burgers and all this stuff. And you're like, okay, we've got all this expense. You are going to have, let's say, 10% wastage no matter what you do.
Right.
But now you have 10% wastage on every single item. Some of them much more expensive
than others.
But the thing when you add, the more items you have, the higher your wastage starts to go. So you still have your 10% across the board, but now you're going to have 15, 25, 35 going up the board.
Exactly.
And so any money you make there, it takes away money from them, but also now you're losing money.
Right.
And it's simplicity. Simplicity is king.
It is, and it's a big thing. I mean, even way back in the late 60s, early 70s, when Peter, his dad was running the business before Peter took over, and he had thought at one time that he was going to do corn dogs and cotton candy. Well, as he soon quickly found out, corn dogs and cotton candy do not go together very well at all. And he put them both in one trailer, of which I have that trailer now. But it didn't work for him. And I don't even know if he got through a season and he's like, this is just crazy. I just can't. There's no efficiency going on here. Mm-hmm. And so he dropped, and that's when he brought the gentleman that brought me into this. That's when he brought him in and said, okay, here, you take this side of the house and you do the cotton candy and I'll do the corn dogs. And they made 2 different businesses out of it, and they both prospered after that period of time.
Going forward.
But prior to that, it was an idea, it was a thought, but he found out real quick and started, because he was a real numbers guy, and he started breaking it down. He's like, man, this doesn't work for me. This is not getting it done. And so he separated. And most people, if you're in this business for very long, realize that same issue. You start looking at your costs, you start looking at your products, and you do 1 or 2 or 3 products very good, and you stay consistent, and you let the rest of it go. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're just chasing your tail, and you really don't make any money.
Nope, you don't.
It's hard.
We're going to take a quick little break, and we'll hop right into that. So you're listening to The Voice of Business, and we'll be back. Welcome back to The Voice of Business. I'm Nicholas Jones here with Arnie Gumm, talking about Paradise Ice food trucks.
Correct.
And we're talking about efficiency. We'll just pick back up where you were at.
Right. Well, and that's the thing that most people that are, if you will, dedicated to this event, to this business, and those that are really trying to make some money, the biggest thing is you have to be a money man. You have to know where your numbers are. And unfortunately, so many of the people that I run across have no idea. Oh, well, I made this much money today. Yeah, okay, you made that much money today on the gross side, but what does that boil down to?
Yeah, what is it really boiling down to?
Where are you at? Are you spending too much on product? And like you had pointed out earlier, if you have so many different products, it's just impossible to keep track of all that, let alone the storage for all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it just gets crazy.
So the first 2 years I had done just those plug and chug registers, right? The point of sale, right? Just where they gives you the paper receipt, all that type of stuff.
Right.
I didn't keep any of that. So every year I was going back into it blind. And then one year I switched over to Square.
Correct.
And then every subsequent year when I'd be at these events, I would pull up the previous year and I would be like, oh, okay, this, I did, X amount on this day. And I was also a lot less panicked because there were days where I was like, I haven't made any money yet. What's going on? Right. And then the last end of the show, just a rush of everything. It's like, oh, there's the 2-hour window.
Right.
And so, but I could see that on Square.
Right.
So,
you could see that. Yeah.
I could see exactly what it is. And I could, and every day. So after, 2-3 years on the Square for my final year, where I was doing my final year,
right.
I knew exactly how much I was going to make at an event. I knew exactly where the baseline is. And, and it was like that final year, super efficient. I knew exactly I knew how much product to buy. I knew what to stock. I knew when I was going to sell stuff. I knew when I needed to ramp up on hours for employees
For
there.
employees, yep. And it helps a bunch. It really does.
Tons. And by that time, I also had become very, very specific on what I was doing with my items. I had a couple food trucks branked out.
Right.
But I actually only on that final year was like, I really started to realize I still am a little bit too broad. Like I still need to bring it in. And, because I always was trying to sell lemonade. I was thinking to myself, hey, I could do lemonade. It'll go great. It goes well with it. It's a stick food. It'll go well. And I was realizing, no, I mean, I can do it, but really it's just soda for me. Like people want bacon and soda. It's, I realized that my sphere for going into these fairs was permission to indulge. Like that was the value proposition. Like you're going to a fair, you're not going to a fair to eat a salad.
No.
Now some people do, but like you're really going because you just want to have fun and let loose. You're giving yourself permission to indulge, spending money on carnival rides, which you're never going to win, but for some reason in your head it's really fun.
Everybody does.
Yep. But it's just fun. It's a fun challenge. And then you're also you're just going to eat easy to carry foods, and all easy to carry foods shouldn't really be going in your body on a regular basis.
That's right.
And so, but moderation in all things, and you're going to be okay.
And you're going to be fine.
One day, 1 or 2 days of this glorious permission to indulge isn't really going to add anything to your waistline, and it's not going to kill you. It's just good fun. Just go have fun.
Correct.
And so people let loose, and that was really what it was. And it's like, okay, so I'm going to give them 1,000 calories on a stick, and they're going to enjoy it and be happy, and they're not going to feel too guilty when they walk away because they've walked in giving themselves permission to indulge. And it's pretty much similar, probably what you have with your food trucks as well.
Ours is the same. It's now I do lemonade, but I do lemonade as a single product out of single trailers
and fresh lemonade,
and it's fresh squeezed.
They see you squeezing it.
Yes,
and it's also a giant lemon.
Well, that always helps, and that's exactly it. We use fresh fruit. We use fresh lemons. And we squeeze it, every day when we do it. Mm-hmm. So, and in fact, I was asked by Hyaldi if I could take that product and put it in one of my other trailers, and it's like, no,
efficiencies. It doesn't work that way.
You don't have to do fresh squeeze. Now, if I was going to do it like a lot of these people do, and they use Country Time, or they use, some of those other ones, or even a bib and a box where they're using
I would pour like a lemonade
Country
juice.
Time.
No, like lemonade juice.
Oh,
like
lemonade juice. Okay.
So it was real lemonade, quote unquote. You guys can't see this, but I'm doing
the air quotes.
Air quotes. But it's different than having a lemon.
It's different, and I know years past. The lady that used to own the ones that I've got now, she used to carry some real lemon in the event that she ran out of lemons, and then they'd go to using that. But if you're an actual lemonade fan, you can tell the difference.
Oh, you can straight up tell the difference.
It's not even in the same ballgame. So we carried that for like the first half a year, and it's like, no, that's not the product we're putting out.
No.
And
plus,
we got rid of it.
As long as you have enough, you've been a good enough individual. Like I remember I was in Boise when you were off at Emmett, and you're like, oh, we ran out of lemons. You're like, hey, can you grab some lemons? And it was easy. I just grabbed lemons and brought them over to you.
There you go.
And so, as long as you're a decent human being, people are going to go to bat for you. And there's always somebody who can help.
Exactly. Within the community, and it's a tight-knit community, which is one of the other reasons why when you have somebody come in that's not necessarily part of the community, and then they try to take over the whole show, selling everything and do different things like that. The tight-knitness of the community, of those people that do work with each other and those that are kind of outsiders, continues to grow with that way. It's like, well, you're not being a sportsman, if you will. You're just trying to come in here and take over everything, and that's not how this operates. And
I remember that one year pizza guy. It was at the Boise Music Festival. He like had that blowhorn and he was like screaming out pizza. I don't remember if you remember that. He's like, I got
he must
pizza
have
over
been
here.
down
Pizza.
on your-
Yeah, he was on my side.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, no, come on. Like you can't do that. And first off, you're annoying the crap out of everybody, but you're making everybody mad.
Yeah.
And so
and that's what I told Hyeldi. It's like, no, I can't take that process and put it in to this other trailer because in the first place, that trailer is built for what
so
it
real
serves.
quick for everybody listening, Hyelda.
Hyeldi is the bass event that comes around every 5 years.
A great event, by the way. If
it's an
anybody wants
awesome
to go,
event.
it's freaking amazing.
They do it down on the Grove, and then they do it out at the fairgrounds as well. And I usually partake out on the fairgrounds. 1 year, 2 years, I think we had the other trailer down on the Grove, right outside their place. And we had some killer years. It's a good event. Hopefully, it's going to happen. It was supposed to happen this year. Obviously, things being what they are, they didn't. So hopefully, it'll come back next year, and we'll see how it works. But yeah, it's a pretty good deal. But there again, like you say, efficiency and getting narrowed down and staying proficient helps your prep time, helps your cleanup time, helps your product costs, helps your storage costs.
Yeah, I mean, even with Pete, like I know we've talked about this a few times, but he has these massive setups, and they're broken down in like 2 hours.
Yeah,
and you're like, what? I'm still doing my little one booth.
Well, let's not forget Pete hires.
He has like 40 people who are like
per booth. Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. But he handles the crowd because he understands that in that 2 hour period of time, you have to handle the crowd. He has an excellent setup in the fact that as it grows, as the people get busier and busier, he can add more people to take more orders, to get more orders across the counter.
Without increasing the wait times for people.
Right. If you don't put food across the counter, you're not making any money. And it at times can be, I mean, we've done the 4th of July down here at Ann Morrison and at night, and you get your 2 hour window, and it is literally crazy. You have to remember, how long does it take to shave ice? How long does it take to pop popcorn? You don't think about it when you're sitting down at the house to make, watch a movie, how long it takes to pop popcorn. But when you've got lines for miles and everybody wants popcorn, it takes a long time to make popcorn.
Yeah, there's a time for it. I remember when I got into Spirit of Boise with Bacon on a Stick, right? So I had 19 people there, and I had 4 registers, and then I had a couple, a couple spaces on the side where I could like start to get people going through there with phones if I need to. And I remember everybody coming up to me like, what are you doing? Like, are you sure? And it's like, no, I got this down now. I know exactly what to do. And so sure enough, like when that hit, like there was like 50, 100 people line deep, and I was just boom, boom, pumping it out. And everybody waited like 30 seconds. And what happened, I wasn't as ready as I had thought. Was I had to be like, I can't sell fries anymore. So like, cause that it just wasn't working.
You don't have the time. You can't get it processed.
And people were getting mad because they wanted fries. And so I had to like have somebody out there like another person out there being like, there's no fries, there's no fries, there's no fries, there's no fries. Right. Just telling them there's no fries. So when they got up there, they weren't mad.
Right.
And
the thing is with fries, I mean, we've had that same issue. And you do the way you do in fries, and you got to keep the oil hot. If the oil doesn't stay hot,
it tanks that oil temperature. That's why I had to stop.
Right, it tanks it so fast, and you don't realize how fast it tanks it. And then the fries are terrible. They come out mushy. They come out full of oil and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I remember when I first got back, I was on deployment over in Bosnia, and I got back just prior to Riverfest, when Riverfest was going on 1 year, and the same type of thing, like you were saying, they were prepping. And I mean, early in the day at Riverfest, you didn't have nothing going on. And they were rolling cotton candy. I'm like, man, what are you rolling cotton candy for? I mean, we literally, the whole trailer was just stuffed full of cotton candy. And the back section, which wasn't very big at the time, behind the trailer, was just stuffed. It was so stuffed you couldn't hardly walk through there. Mm-hmm. And if you sit down, you had cotton candy sitting on your head. I mean, it was everywhere. And I'm like, all right, you people are nuts. This is crazy. And it got to be, I don't remember, about 5 o'clock, and they finally quit rolling. It's like, okay, we'll let the machines cool down just a little bit and wait and see what happens. And I'm like, what are you going to do with all this cotton candy? This is crazy. And no kidding, by 7:30, 2 hours later,
it's gone.
It was all gone, and we were rolling to order as fast as we could roll. It was like, what the heck happened here? It was nuts. But yeah, and then you're just, And we rolled steady from that time until 11:30 at night, just trying to keep up with cotton candy orders. Yeah. And we were down. I mean, we were good enough. We were doing like one every 45 seconds, and we could not stay up with the crowd.
Nope.
It's crazy. It's just nuts.
I found, and everything's different. So this, for those people who are listening, like the thing is that every business has a little bit different, but I found with bacon on a stick, for example,
right.
If I gave them their food in 15 seconds, they looked at me like,
is this fresh, or what are you doing with this?
And then and even with 30 seconds, so is the 45-second mark.
Right.
And so I tried to make sure that everybody waited 45 seconds. And then it wasn't like they were like, oh, this is too gross, but they weren't mad that it took too long. And it was 45 seconds. Right. So I would actually, I had this guy named Jared, he was hilarious. He'd like always tell jokes to people, like entertain them, all that type of stuff. He's going through it. And we would, have the line steadily build up. We'd have, 10, 15 people, in line going for it. And then we'd get up to like 40 people, sometimes at like a busy event where it's like Spirit of Boise, but every single person was 45 seconds.
Right.
And they all were very pleased.
And as long as you keep the lines moving, they literally are okay with that. It's when everything starts to back up. And there's no reason why you can't. And then you start telling them, "Oh, I'm out of stuff." Then they go.
It's just over.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and I was Square. Like I had noticed that it had like 50% of the people who came were people who came the year before.
Right. Repeat customers.
And so it's
important.
You build that up. So your first year you make 10. Next year you make 13. Next year you make 15. Like because people are like, "Oh, I'm going to go get a bacon on a stick." And I'm going to go get a bacon on a stick.
Yep.
When I stopped doing bacon on a stick, like I got so many hate messages.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure you did.
I got a ton of them.
Oh yeah.
And they were just mad. But like that was just proof. That's like, oh, good, we had done a good job.
Right.
And I also got. But then on the flip side, I got a lot of hate messages when I screwed up Oriental Express for people because they were very mad at me.
Yes.
They're like, you did not keep it the way it was. And I was like, I'm trying. Yeah. But it was a completely different thing, and I wasn't ready for it. And it was a learning experience for me.
And that's the same thing, and I think we had talked once or twice about it. It's like this product is not to that standard, specific. And it needs to be that specific, and it needs to be that product because people come here for a purpose. They see the trailer, they see whatever, and they come to get that. And if that isn't that, whether it's by taste, whether it's by whatever,
texture,
it's
quality,
just
whatever
it's just crazy. I know one year at Western in Paradise, which is where I usually sell my chocolate covered bananas, and oh my God, you'd have thought we'd have just disappeared. They moved us 2 slots, which is 2 trailer links.
Yeah, 2 trailer links.
Like nothing.
Everybody loses their mind.
They did. They went crazy. I don't know how many guys out at the guard saying, well, where'd you go? I went down there specifically to get, and you weren't there no more. People don't, I'm a big 20-foot yellow trailer. The only yellow trailer on the line. And they couldn't find me. 2 steps.
Creatures of habit.
They are. They're very creatures of habit.
So we'll be back real quick. We're going to take a quick little break. You're listening to The Voice of Business with Nicholas Jones. Welcome back to The Voice of Business. Again, I'm here with Arnie Gumm and his food truck empire. So we were just talking about, they moved you down 2 spots.
Yeah, well, they moved you down, and all of a sudden nobody could find you, even though, as I said, we're the only one on the line.
Big
yellow trailer. We had the same. We went into Twin Falls one year, and Twin Falls Coke had gotten to them, and it's usually a Pepsi event, and Coke had gotten to them, and we're going to give you some money, and we're going to be the only people exclusive, right? So we had to sell Coke. Twin Falls is not a Coke area. No, I don't care.
It's Pepsi. Everybody loves Pepsi.
Oh my gosh. Not just love Pepsi. They are dedicated Pepsi. And if you're Mountain Dew, forget it. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't sell a Mountain Dew. Oh my gosh. And I had that same year before the event was even over, I had to go into the fair manager and go, whoa, you cannot do this. We are taking such a brash out here from the customers because we can't sell them Mountain Dew. This is nuts. I don't care what you do, but Coke's got to go. Because I've got to be able to sell my Pepsi. For the customers just lose their mind if they don't get the product they want. It's really kind of nuts.
Well, and that's the thing is that there's a following. Like, and the thing with it with events is it's not just a regular Joe Schmo individual. It's a person who goes there specifically for that purpose to permission to indulge. They want that one specific item. And even cotton candy, people swear by. Their cotton candy is better than their cotton candy.
Yep.
And you know, for me, who's not a cotton candy swab, I don't know. I don't taste any different. I'm like, this cotton candy tastes like the other cotton candy. But I honestly feel with many of them, you could do a blind test, line them up, and they could pick out your cotton candy or someone else's cotton candy just by the taste and the texture.
We used to have a few people who, no kidding, would go from event to event. They knew exactly what events we were in, and they would come specifically for cotton candy.
Exactly.
And they would come. So every time, then, because we usually do, now we do a mixed bag. So we do some blue raspberry and we do some vanilla. And so you'll get 2 of each or 1 of each, depending on the bag, because there's three little tufts in each bag, to make the bag full, which a lot of people don't do. They do little teeny bags, and they're selling it for the same price we do. But regardless. But this lady only preferred the vanilla. So we knew going to each event that she would be there. And so we would roll up a couple bags of just vanilla and set it aside just for her, because we knew she was coming. And every event she would show up, 2 bags. Yep. Here you go. Boom, boom. And away she'd go. Became very good friends. But yeah, every event she was there just for two bags of vanilla cotton candy. That was it.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, I had the same thing where a person would come, they'd always come. He always wanted to have tinfoil to wrap. He'd buy like a few extra bacon on his sticks to bring tinfoil, and he'd buy like 4 or 5 of them every single event. And we got tinfoil just specifically because of that.
Yep.
And he's like,
so you could wrap them up just special just for him, because you knew he was coming.
Yep. And it'd be like, hey, Rick, here you go.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
We got it for you. We're ready to go.
Exactly.
and but it's because he'd be at every event.
Right. They just do. They find out where you're at. It's a big following. And that's how we kind of got known to begin with, is just word of mouth, event after event. And people get used to who you are, what your product is, and the fact that it's good. And the same thing goes if you got a bad product, quality,
you have to be focusing on it.
Yeah, it runs the other direction just as fast.
And they tell other people.
And word of mouth is still the best advertising there is out there. I since got a web page and did some other things, but I don't get near as much push out of the web pages I do out of just word of mouth. But there again, I'm not trying to put it on the street or any place specific.
You have a captive audience anyways from the beginning.
In the events, and everybody knows what events I go to, and because I've been around for quite a while now.
Since 98.
Yeah.
And with that, you also have the good execution, good experience. I mean, I think I leaned on you so many times. I mean, there were times I was like, I need 205s, and you're like, oh, I've got them right here.
Yeah. Well, you learn that kind of stuff over years,
And so the last 2 years, I was ready. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna run out of 5s and 1s.
Yeah. And I knew this. See, I know, because obviously I've been around for a little bit, so I know quarters are going to be a big thing. I know that 5s are going to be a big thing. 1s are going to be a big thing. 10s, but people can get around 10s, but 10s also. So I got to the point where, I kind of, made sure I kept back more and more to try to make up for that. And of course, my wife hates it, but because we become the banker during the event, because everybody's coming around.
You got to be charging like a money fee for us.
Exactly.
It'd be like it's 5%.
Yeah. Well, and you probably, if I was that type, I could probably have done that and done well. But it's more of to me, it's more of a community and helping others out in a time, because you don't really know for sure. You have a good idea how the events have been going. You have a good idea of the possibilities of what's going to happen. But plan as you will, there's always going to be something, whether it be change, whether it be equipment, whether it be water lines, electricity. I mean, we've run across the magnitude of everything. You run one event and it gets super busy. So you're pulling super lots of power, and all of a sudden you burn a line because it just happens. And now you popped one of your lines, and now you're out. So the other big issue in this business is you have got to be able to think on your feet. You've got to be able to repair in a minute's notice. And it's kind of funny, but baling wire, pliers, and duct tape.
Those are the things you use all the time.
It's crazy, but at times if you can't think on the fly because you can't just run down the store. You don't have time.
No, you have to fix it right then and there.
Yeah,
and
it's got to be now, and you got to be back up, whether it's a pop machine that goes down. And yeah, I mean, I got 3 soda machines in all of my cotton candy booths, and to have to call Pepsi on a service is like crazy. You can't make it. If your Pepsi machine goes down, you don't have time enough to call them and go, yeah, can you come out? Well, we'll schedule in for tomorrow. That kind of stuff. It's like, no, you don't understand. It's right now. It's right here, and it's got to happen. And Pepsi and Coke both, they have gotten to where back in the day, they used to have guys on site for the whole event. Mm-hmm. And so you could just say, hey, I need this, and they would be right there.
They'd
and they could
second.
fix,
boom, boom, boom.
And away you go. And then they go, well, it's cost us too much money, all that kind of stuff. And so they've gone completely away from that. No, we have a guy that's running service, but he's clear over in Kuna right now, and you're down in Garden City at the West Nile
there
Fair.
Maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, or tomorrow.
Yeah, and your day is shot as far as soda's concerned. You can't do it. So I got, obviously have learned over the years. I watch all the technicians. I help them do all their job. I know most all the technicians. Few of the new guys I don't know as well now today as I used to, and they understand. So I keep extra parts just for that purpose. So if a pump goes out or a head goes out, you're bang, bang, you're switching, you're popping, you're doing whatever needs to be done, and you're back up and running because you can't. And then you give them a call, and they come out, and a lot of times the guys come out and they'll go, oh, what's going on? I said, well, I had to do this. I had to swap this out. And so they give me the new parts. I put them back in my stash, and we move on down the road, and they charge it out, and away they go. It's not a big deal, but it is a big deal if you cannot do any of this type of stuff. It makes it a lot harder if you have to rely on somebody else to do speedy recovery maintenance. And there again, I've over the years have helped a number of people do that very issue.
Where you've helped me with stuff where it's like
do that very issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had to repair some on Bonominios. He used to do Italian sausage there at the West Nile Fair. He finally retired, but he himself, I mean, they were in it for 30 years, something like that. But he was the same thing. He had some electrical problems, and we had to go down and take some of his electrical stuff apart and swap out some plugs and hook up new wires and do some different things for him one time just to get him back in the road. Yeah. So
well, see we're right at the end here, unfortunately, but the thing within that world is the sense of community. It really is one of the things that makes it work. And I've tried to carry that into my brick and mortar aspect of things because I know variety works and all that type of stuff. Right. But it's really that community because rarely ever do I think you ever need help. But if you needed any help, someone's going to be there in a jiff, in just a second, just to help you out.
Correct. Because
of all the times you've bailed them out, and so that you're building up a lot of sense of security in that sense that they'll be there to do anything you need here at any moment. Like I was excited to bring you the lemons when you called me up. Like, yes, I got to help Arnie. I got to do something he can't do, and
it's very helpful. It's very helpful, and that's my take on the whole thing has always been more for the masses and the community. If people need help moving their trailer in, I put their trailer in. If they need help, doing whatever. But it's always trying to make the event the best event that it can be for the customers and for the vendors themselves, and trying to help everybody. And I've always been that way, probably always will be, to the disgrin of a few people that you would prefer that I would quit wasting my time helping everybody else and get my stuff done because, setup time takes a long time.
Oh, so much time.
Yeah, I mean, so, and I'm usually last because I've been helping everybody else. So by the time I get back to mine, I'm usually last one going in, but it doesn't matter. I make sure I've got enough time to make sure I got my stuff done when it needs to be. And my days are a little longer, but that's okay because everybody else is set and ready to go, and we'll have a good show. So.
And with that variety too, I mean, it's the variety that brings people.
Right.
Because, Tom may want a corn dog, but his wife may want cotton candy.
Correct.
And his kids may want a shaved ice. And, so that variety, it's literally a smorgasbord of beauty. So go to your fairs when we're out of this hashtag 2020, guys.
Yeah, please.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Arnie. And I appreciate it. And have a good day. I hope you all have a great Saturday morning.